Welcome back, welcome back. The peace process between Palestinians and Israelis has been out of the news a bit recently, but it doesn't mean that it's been buried forever. This week, a series of high-profile meetings have been taking place in Oxford, in England, the talks being arranged by the Oxford Research Group, part of an initiative, Arabs working to bring peace to the Middle East as well. Joining us straight from the talks is Professor Eli Prodeh. He's going to tell us what happened and why it was important, if it was important. What happened this week, Professor? What happened?
Good evening. First of all, I think that the meetings were significant because we are talking with Saudis, Palestinians about the Arab Peace Initiative. And I think it is significant because the idea is to relaunch the Arab Initiative and to promote it as in order to bring forward the peace process.
So it's important on those grounds. And was there progress made during the week? Progress in terms or progress in understanding?
Yes, I think so. I mean, first of all, we heard positions of each side, and then we brought up different suggestions. The idea was how we can get out of the current impasse of the deadlock in the Arab-Israeli process. It's quite obvious that the Israeli-Palestinian track is in a deadlock. There is a serious problem which emanates not only from the changing in the Israeli government, but also because of the problematic relations between the Hamas and the Fatah. And therefore, we think that maybe the Arab Peace Initiative can be a way to bypass this hurdle or these problems on that track.
How could you bypass them?
Well, the thing is that if we bring the Arabs, the Saudis and the Egyptians, and perhaps we try to convene some kind of a regional conference, then we might open different simultaneous track with the Syrians, with the Arabs, with the Palestinians as well, and then to try and go forward simultaneously.
In terms of the Arab Peace Initiative originally emanating from the Saudis, I mean, I suppose the most knotty problems there are, I suppose, Golan Heights, but then in addition to the Golan Heights, the right to return. Are those the two biggest talking points?
Yes. Yeah, these are the two basic problems, and I think that for the time being, we didn't try to go into the details in order to discuss them. I think that, first of all, the main problem is the fact that the Israeli public opinion in general, and also the decision makers, as surprising as it might hear, they are not familiar with the initiative and the text itself. I mean, in Israel, we find it time and again that we need to explain. So therefore, what we need is to begin with a public opinion campaign in order to acquaint the public with it. And the final target, I think, is to get to the government in order to elicit some kind of endorsement or acknowledgement of the government, of the Israeli government, for the Arab Peace Initiative.
Because in fact, I suppose, Mr. Olmert, the retiring Prime Minister, he spoke pretty clearly this week and candidly about the concessions Israel will have to make in order for a peaceful settlement to be arrived at. I mean, that was a positive contribution, I guess.
Exactly, but this is a kind of a legacy that he leaves behind. Now, he is no longer the Prime Minister, and therefore, perhaps he is more free to say different things that he didn't feel free to say while he was Prime Minister. But his successor, Tzipi Livni, most probably will have to tackle the issue. Now, the question is how we move forward. Now, there are different ways. One way is to go forward on the Palestinian or the Syrian bilateral track. We believe that the Arab Peace Initiative offers something tangible both for the Israelis and the Arabs, and therefore we have to take it or to relaunch it in order to move forward. This is a very good vehicle to move forward.
And do you think the new leadership in Israel, Mrs. Livni, I mean, will that change the nuances?
Well, this is a big question, and therefore we need to open this campaign in order to somehow affect or impress the government that indeed we have here an important card. But if you talk or you ask me specifically about Livni, then she already reacted positively to the initiative. She had some problems with the clause regarding the Palestinian return, that is correct, but I think that a different interpretation can be suggested and therefore it can be accepted. What about the rest? This is party politics, you know, when we have different parties with different platforms, and therefore this is the responsibility of Livni when and she will be persuaded that this is the right direction. I hope that she will be able to convince the others.
And it's been reported that the Middle East Quartet is losing its grip somewhat on the situation, or do you think that's still a positive factor?
Well, I think that they are not in the same position. First of all, we have to talk about the United States, which is the major factor.
Yes.
Now, I think that the changing of an administration is very significant, and that's why the situation perhaps is more ripe in order to take a decision or to move forward. Because whoever will be elected in the States, and most probably it will be Obama, he is not committed to the Bush legacy or to the Bush policy. And therefore, I think this is the right opportunity now that a new president will come into power. He can change the situation and perhaps he can endorse as well, because the Bush administration was very reluctant to accept. He did say something positive about the plan in general, but it was never a kind of policy that he used in order to promote the peace process.
Do you think, Professor, that there will be a peace in the Middle East between the Palestinians and Israel within the next year?
Well, within the next year, it seems to me as too early, maybe. We have to remember we are 15, 60 years beyond or behind the Oslo agreements. You know, it's a very long process and very unfortunate for many of us. But still, I do believe that we do have an instrument here that we can use. So far, we haven't used that. It was launched for the first time in 2002. We are 6 years after, but I think that the situation or the circumstances are more ripe in order to use it in order to get away from the current impasse.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Professor. I mean, we were actually also hoping to have one of the Palestinian delegates here to join the Professor, but he's in the traffic somewhere between Oxford and London. And thank you for doing such a magnificent job of telling us about the whole conference and not just your part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for this week. In fact, my thanks to all of my guests, and do join me again in 7 days' time for another cracking edition of Frost Over the World.